Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Are you a brewhead? I'm a brewhead. Y'all are brewheads? Yeah, we brewheads. So pour a glass of craft beer, we can do this. Yeah.
What's good, y'all? This is C Certified Brewhead.
And I'm Tiffany, Liquid Enthusiast.
Welcome to episode 32 of Beer and Other Shit Podcast Link Up Series. Tiffany, we are back again. Series 6. This is week 5, so penultimate week. I love that word, penultimate.
Wow, yeah, that's a new word of the week for me, of the day. Yeah.
Every syllable, every word in Spanish is the stress is on the penultimate syllable.
Okay.
Unless it's got an accent, otherwise.
Duolingo, look at that.
No, that was Michelle Thomas.
Oh,
rest in peace.
This is the old.
This is like 20 years ago.
Okay, nice.
Actually, it was 20 years ago I learned that.
Yeah.
How's that? Man's is old.
Yeah.
But anyway, we digress. We are here. Link Up, it's been a fantastic Series 6. As always, fantastic breweries from across Quebec and Ontario. And this week we are bringing it back to Ontario with a brewery who we recently had on the podcast for the first time for a full long-form pod, which was amazing. These guys are legend. This is like an honor and a privilege to work with this brewery.
Legendary. It's so cool. It's so awesome.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
These were breweries that we were drinking back in 2011 when I, started the beer journey in Canada. And so it's extra cool to know the people behind it. And they've been supporting BOS since the beginning as well. But just to, also get involved in something like this is just so cool to us. Like, it's really can't be understated how cool it is. And just the thought and the intentionality behind how they approach their business and their community activities and everything. It's awesome. So we're very excited for this one. So I'm just going to bring it right on in. Please welcome the amazing Karyn from Wellington Brewery in the building.
Everyone's clapping for
Everyone's
you.
clapping, Karyn. Right? Thank you so much for joining us and hanging out tonight. And, of course, for doing Link Up. You are the best. Appreciate you very much.
Pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. The pleasure is ours. So, Karyn, we are going to get into the beer first and foremost. Now, just to let the folks know at home that we highly respect, Karyn is taking a bit of a beer break, which is awesome. So, it would just be Tiff and I drinking. Sometimes you really need a long beer break. I was saying to Karyn off air that I wish I could take a lengthy one, but here we are.
But I don't.
But I don't. I can't. And I won't.
It's not easy. It is not easy.
I can't imagine in your position.
You're in a brewery working every day. So, it's around you. It's just there. There's events you got to be at. You just had the Wellington Cask Fest, which we'll probably talk about over the weekend. Did you drink there, or you took that off?
I mean, none of us that are working actually really have any of the beers. We'll test them before just to make sure the casks are all okay. But I wasn't even involved in that process this year. So, yeah, I didn't drink at Cask Fest this year.
There you go.
Wow.
There you go.
You're a stronger human than most,
okay.
I would say.
Good for you.
But I noticed, working events, you don't have time to use the bathroom, let alone...
Yeah, you're working.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. So, we did not try, even though you did drop this beer off a few weeks back, we waited to drink it with you or to chat with you while we were doing it. So, this is the Wellington Link Up APA, American Pale Ale. Oh, here we go. We got it. With a super cool design, which I'm excited to hear more about.
Design.
Look at that right there. Love that. This is awesome, Karyn. Do you want to tell us about the beer itself and what's going on?
Well, they wanted to just create something that was super easy drinking.
Okay.
And, when we were all talking about it, going around the table, wow, we haven't done an APA in a long time. Let's just focus on an APA. And I think they wanted to bring up the hop levels a little bit. So it's a bit of a hoppier pale ale. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of a borders sort of an APA and an IPA.
Okay.
But I'll let you be the judge of what you think of it.
Okay.
I think it's delicious. I've probably had 3 or 4 of them. Because I don't drink a lot of beer actually, but I did gravitate towards that one. And we were just super stoked about being part of the initiative.
Love to hear it. I do love that you did an American Pale Ale. I feel like, I'm trying to think now, I don't know if we've had a straight up, we've had pale ales, but I don't know if we've had a sort of an intentional American style pale ale, meaning not a New England, even though it is quite hazy here. Obviously the profile is probably more on the bitter piney. I can smell it, right? Candied citrus already on the nose. It might be might be a first. Love to see that.
Oh, sweet.
Which is super fun. But yes, great idea doing doing something easy drinking. I find that obviously that's relatively a common thought, and it makes complete sense. We want to try and invite people into beer, and often you folks in beer aren't getting themselves into like the craziest stuff. You really got to ease people into it. So having something that's more on the gateway vibes, it also kind of matches with Wellington's kind of classic history. Even though, as we said on that large pod, you guys obviously do a lot of the fun, funky stuff too. So this is money.
Whatever we try to do, we try to create balance within that style, whatever it is. Like even when we were brewing for Cask Fest, it was like, we were doing like tiramisu milk stouts and different things, but also trying not to make anything too sweet, too bitter, too sour, just really trying to figure out, the perfect amount of everything to convey, or even maybe slightly push the limits of that style, but not to ever go too far with it.
Smart. That's a great approach for it as well.
Smells amazing.
Do you know the hops in this? While you're talking, cheers.
I actually don't, but let me see. I think I could look those up. I remember we talked about those in a meeting.
Oh, yeah.
That's just delicious.
Yeah.
And it smells fantastic.
Yeah, the nose, I could tell when Tiff cracked the can next to me. It was like 2 feet away. I was like, ooh, wow. That's,
wow.
Oh, yeah.
And this is still super fresh. Would it be maybe, my guess would probably be mostly maybe sea hops?
I would say mostly sea hops. That's what I would say.
It's very super dry and refreshing. Tons of citrus, like the nose kind of conveyed, maybe a little bit of stone fruit. It's almost like a touch dank. Definitely some sort of piney, like light piney resinous, but it's like a juicy.
Did you guys see we just put my glasses on?
No.
So I can text our head brewer and ask him exactly what the
What's
recipe of this beer is.
I love that. That's dedication. I appreciate that. But this,
this
is
my
great.
glasses on.
I know.
It's it is really nice. The pour, like, was it intentionally kind of made to be like an APA that's made sort of a little on the hazy side, or was that just sort of how it came out?
I think that was how it came out. It was also intentional that they wanted it to be. We have been doing more IPAs lately, and we were brewing a bunch for Cask Fest. So I think they wanted to scale it back and do an APA, but because we had so many IPAs going on, but I think that they also wanted it to be a little bit chunkier, like a little more, have a lot of depth to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I think they achieved that pretty well. With
Definitely.
Yeah. No, this is great. This is sort of kind of what I thought it would be, which is awesome, man. This is fantastic and exactly what I expect from you guys. So this is perfect. How's the response been so far, like from the tap room and from folks you've seen?
Oh yeah, people are loving it. It's selling really well.
Awesome.
And we also have been trying to actually pitch the story behind it, which I think is, like, for this beer particularly, yes, it's great that there's a really yummy liquid in the can, but for a lot of the beers that we do that have, more thought behind it and an actual meaning and something that it stands for, I think we're really looking more at the story here. So we've got, the story posted up and just more information for people to, connect with you and figure out, like, what is this beer all about? Which I love that curiosity factor, because a lot of people do come in and they're really curious about, like, what is this beer supporting? And so, I mean, this is always a great story to explain to people and to get people more curious about what's happening in the industry.
I love that. That's awesome.
That's really good to hear.
Yeah,
and I love that you said it's posted up somewhere too, to like really add that. And I saw it on the site as well too, like that, the blurb and brief with it. So that's awesome.
Now you guys really went over and above to really push the mission. We very much appreciate that. And I'm not surprised to hear that you've been like proactively talking to people. That's very much on brand. I love it. And it's super cool. I love that I'm always curious to hear those stories about how people are responding in real time in the tap room, because obviously they're coming in as just fans of the brewery and they're like wanting to buy some beer. I'm like, oh, what's this cool thing? What's this all about? Like, and then they get the story. So I love to hear that. Could you speak to the to the label there at all?
Can art is awesome.
Here we go.
Yeah. So we have an in-house designer, which I don't think. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know if a lot of craft breweries have their own in-house designer, but ours just took the scope of the project and kind of ran with it with this beautiful label. Love the color scheme.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all really, everything that he tends to create is very unique and
Hmm.
really stands out on a shelf. But I think this one in particular, just it really pops when you see it, like amongst all the other beers. It just pops. You just gravitate towards it, and I like all the symbolism on it. It's a really cool, unique design for sure.
Yeah, when we like every time I even see it in the fridge and stuff like that, I'm just like, oh, it just like catches my eyes so hard because it's just so intricate. Like all these different, there's like someone pouring the beer, there are people drinking, there's a
Cheersing.
canning line, there's cheersing happening. It's very, very cool.
It feels kind of like it's detailing the process, kind of somewhat of brewing, but also like serving and packaging the beer and
Yeah,
to the point of
enjoying
sharing it
it.
together.
And I think what he was trying to convey was just like, um, it's not one it's not one particular role that makes a beer, right? It is
Yeah,
so many different moving parts, and connections too, right?
yeah,
And that's what you're trying to do, is really forge connections
yeah.
and cultivate community and strength in community. And yeah, I think you really nailed it with this one for sure.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I love to hear as well that you gravitate towards that in the fridge and the bright yellow and stuff. And you got like some pretty like your classic line, the bold colors, but your sort of fun one-offs and stuff are definitely like eye-catching with lots of colors going on. So to know that this one stands out even more from your perspective is very, very cool. I love to hear that. So then this is awesome, Karyn. This beer, the packaging, money as expected. Thank you again. Very, very cool. From obviously, if anyone's followed Wellington for a while, you know that you guys have really been doing like stuff for the community in Guelph and beyond for, I would imagine, decades. I'm sure you can break that down, but the first question is always, what about Link Up specifically was interesting to a brewery like Wellington, who are so well known for all the different community activities that you guys do?
I think this project is something that we like. It's something that we've also been trying to get off of the ground with the Guelph Dot Beer Group, um, is to develop a more inclusive space in beer for people in our communities. Particularly, that's what we're moving towards. And when we noticed that you were doing something similar to what we had thought of, like our initial ideas that we were really trying to get off the ground, it just was a no-brainer for us that this was something that feels important. Inclusivity in beer is something that you're trying to change. I'm sorry if you can hear all this noise. My neighbor is having a party, and I feel like
Oh no, it's fine.
Hey, it's good.
It's good ambiance in the
Yeah,
background.
it's like a vibe. I was like, cool, this is sick. They're
I'm
having a
trying
good
not
time.
to get distracted by it.
That's fine.
If there's any tea,
Um,
if you hear anything fun,
You let us know.
you can
Yeah,
reiterate.
But back to what I was saying, it is, I mean, obviously, we talked about this in our last interview. Like, craft beer in Ontario has been basically all male and white for a very long time.
It has.
And to be able to open up spaces for other people at the table of craft beer is something that I've been working towards over the past decade. And there are so many people at the forefront of this movement. And I think it's a struggle, but there are great people working behind the scenes to try to make change. And so when I see something like this, or when our brewery sees something like this that's happening, it's something that we obviously want to be involved in and want to push and move towards.
Love that. And like that's awesome. And it really did feel like a perfect fit as soon as we spoke. Obviously, we've been talking via email for years, and I think it took this for us to actually meet in person and to chat over the phone and everything. So I mean, that I was very happy to have that regardless. But it definitely felt like something that made perfect sense for you
Yeah.
guys to do.
It feels completely aligned. It feels like really authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And you all have just leaders in the industry, and that's why it's super important to have like leaders in the industry participate in things like this too.
Yeah. Do you feel that as well? Do you feel like I mean, obviously you're been there. I think you said 13 years at Wellington, if I recall correctly, and the brewery's been around 30 plus years. I mean, do you see that as well, that it is important for breweries like yourself, there's probably less than a handful of you guys who are in that 3-decade league
Yeah.
in Ontario that I can think of, maybe even less. But do you think it's important for breweries like yourselves to get involved in things like this and to kind of be maybe a little more vocal, and then others can maybe follow that lead?
I think not only breweries, but other businesses in general. I think I really do think that any businesses has any kind of platform, um, and that can use that platform in a positive direction to create more inclusive spaces for everybody. Um, yeah, it seems like there is a movement happening. I don't know. I feel like there's bumps in the movement. Like sometimes it feels like it's moving smoothly and you can feel like this collective energy moving in the right direction. And then sometimes you feel like there's a stall in that energy that's moving things or pushing things forward. And then you have people at the forefront who are working so hard that are getting super exhausted and need to, recharge their own batteries. Like I feel like there's so many moving parts when you're working with opening up your business to not just a financial business model, but opening it up to like creating actual authentic community. And it's hard. There's a lot of um, I guess there's just a lot of stuff that you have to take into consideration when you're balancing business, community, and all the initiatives that you want to clasp onto and support and run with. Um, I think that every brewery has its sort of strength in different areas. And I'm hoping that one of our strengths definitely has been sort of opening up the beer world to women who were maybe feeling 10 years ago intimidated and getting involved. And I think that that's one of our biggest claims to fame. And then I think there are other breweries who have done better at opening up other communities to into beer and allowing for other communities to feel more safe and welcome and in the beer industry.
I love that. I mean, let's jump into the thing about the gender that you guys have been doing. I mean, I imagine you're referring to Queen of Craft, which started a decade ago. Do you want to maybe explain? I know we went into detail on that on the other pod, but I feel like it's super relevant here as well. Like you said, I remember getting into beer in Canada in 2011, and Tiff and I were together at the time, and then you would have been the only whenever we went to breweries. Do you remember?
Oh, often, yeah. Like one of the only women there. One definitely like the only black woman a lot of the times. But yeah, so it's been really great to see that expand. And I do even remember like Queen of Craft from so long ago.
Yeah.
And I just always thought that was so cool because it was just so contrary to what we were so used to seeing. So yeah, definitely. Please speak to that too, because a goal is what I think that has been done in this space can definitely be done in the BIPOC diversity space with love and attention. So yeah.
I completely agree, and I think now we've kind of come past. I'm not going to say fully come past the place where women should be the focus of opening space. I think that there has been a lot of movement in that direction, and now it does need to shift to BIPOC communities, and it does need to shift to like a few other different communities that should be included in beer. I think that what we went through with Queen of Craft was, I'd have women, just as you said, in 2011 coming into the tap room and having their boyfriend order for them, or, having say, I only like light beers or whatever it was. But when you would actually sit and have a conversation and have them try an imperial stout, they were like, "Oh, this is my new favorite beer. This has so much to it. Is something that I actually really enjoy." And as I saw that more and more, that there was sort of this, I don't know, that women were coming in feeling like they didn't have the confidence to actually like talk to one of the brewers at the bar about brewing. I realized that this was a bit of an issue because as soon as you got that conversation rolling, it was like, oh yeah, they were taking it on and super interested. I started to meet more women who had started home brewing and different women in Ontario craft beer at the time. And we just decided we're going to get all women at the helm of all the educating for the rest of time, like all of our sessions. That's always going to be our mandate. And we are going to, open up space for women to come, ask questions, learn, have fun, build community. And we give back 100% of all of our proceeds to Guelph Wellington Women in Crisis. So we've raised over $85,000 for them.
Incredible. Oh my gosh. That's amazing. Wow.
It's been totally amazing. I've been so lucky to be at spearheading that project. And in that 10 years, I have seen so much change happen in Ontario craft beer specifically. Some good, and the reckoning, people speaking up about what they've experienced in the beer industry, and it's been a lot. I feel like craft beer it's a very intense little community to be involved in, for sure.
That's a way to put it.
It's an interesting space for sure. As far as, I mean, that's phenomenal. Like, from what you guys have done, truly, in 10 years, being able to sort of really change. Like, I feel like you guys really spearheaded a lot of the women focused events, and really getting people to sort of hey man, it's not just dudes, it's women too are into this. And like you said, you're seeing the real time impact in the in the tap room, where you're seeing people try different stuff. But are there anything else that you could speak to that you've seen? I mean, a decade's a long time. I don't think we've spoken to many people on at least the Link Up series about this type of stuff, who've been doing this type of work for that period of time. Is there any other, have you seen, I guess more maybe on a wider scale, because obviously you can speak to sort of Wellington, but have you seen maybe some sort of an impact from the work and maybe that you guys have started, and then, have you seen other people do similar things and continue that work? Or have you seen any other changes perhaps from the work that you guys started back then?
I think I always look back really fondly at, one of these specific events that we did, which was all about sort of calling out all of the marketing and actual graphic design of some of the labels in Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that was problematic at one point.
And that were problematic at that point. And I remember, I think around that time was one of the first times that we had Ren Navarro come up and do one of Ren's very first actual lectures. And it was such an incredible experience to just having witnessed where Ren has gone in their career, and how much push and how much influence, and just the amount of absolute energy that Ren has put into craft beer to make it a better place. And I feel like I kind of saw that from the beginnings of it, and I've seen it build and build, and not just Ren, but other hard-hitting women in craft beer, and where their careers have gone, where their journeys have gone. And I think that a lot of breweries have become more conscious of little things that maybe they didn't really think about before. For example, your label design, and how that's perceived, and what you're throwing out there, for everybody to consume, and whether you feel good about what you're putting out there into the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's been a little more consciousness on that level. I think that also, breweries are more conscious of how they interact with their communities. And I'm hoping, I am in kind of a little bit of a Guelph bubble here, but I am hoping and seeing you look at Left Field, you look at all these other breweries that are doing great things in their communities as well. And I'm not saying that's because of us, but I am saying that, it feels like this collective unconscious thing that sort of started happening around the time that I saw an upswing in I saw things changing in craft beer,
Yeah, that's awesome. That is really cool. I mean, like, I was asking it because I feel like I've noticed it, and I imagine Tiff, you probably feel the same. Just over the years, the one thing I felt like is the most in the place that it needs to be, or pretty close, is the gender balance. As far as like, you go to a brewery,
Not in ownership,
but yes, absolutely,
at least correct. More now in the levels of like you go to a tap room and yeah.
And just the knowledge of like. I hear like horror stories from different women we've had on the podcast who have told us, like, you know, people say the dumb shit to them where they're like, oh, okay, this is a fruity one, and then to the guy they'll offer like all of that nonsense. Like, I can't believe that still happens. That is so ridiculous to me. Like, I know many women who know so much more about beer than me, and I would never assume that somebody, because of their gender, didn't know stuff. But I imagine there's probably those, like, what's the word, legacy folks who are like still living in 1997 or whatever, where maybe barely any women drank beer. So it's, you know, I feel like that's definitely been, wherever I go to a beer bar, I don't feel like it's a sausage fest type of thing. You know, I feel like it's pretty cool. Go to most breweries and I feel like it's
that has changed. That has gotten
definitely
better
changed.
without question.
Just got back from the States, and I feel like the States is an interesting place with regard to the then it's us the ethnicity of people that in a brewery, and I feel like it's so much more diverse there than it is here. Did you feel that?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure, because I feel like, I mean, I'm in, once again, my Guelph bubble, but I don't feel like there's a lot of diversity, obviously, in yet, you know, and hopefully that's something that is changing with initiatives like this.
Yeah, I mean, that's the aim, and it's interesting because it's sort of almost, it's like, and I imagine I'd be curious how you feel. Like, sometimes this is a little like, it's brick by brick. There's no like quick way to do any of this stuff. Like, you have to introduce one person at a time to craft beer to be like, hey, this is a thing, and like, hey, this is a potential career, and maybe people will be like, oh, well, I don't want to work in it, but sweet, this tastes better than the stuff I'm drinking. Let's get into this. And people do have and we were just talking sort of off air about like how beautiful Ontario is now, happy we've been in Hamilton. And so we're seeing like, there's like that, you know, return to local, like in Quebec, they've always been pretty big on local, and particularly over the last few years, people are realizing the importance of supporting local businesses. And I feel like that somewhat plays a role in all of this, I would imagine, as well. And maybe it doesn't matter where you're from and what background you are, you're like, you know, you want to go to that local grocery store or butcher or whatever it might be, including breweries, and trying to like really come back to that. And you know, the Guelph scene I know is super tight. There's like 5 of you guys, I believe, that from what you told me in the last pod. And so it's cool to see that like have you seen a change in Guelph? Because like you said, Guelph bubble, have you seen a change? Obviously gender, that seems like we're all agreeing here that that's doing a lot better than other things. But have you seen any other changes, maybe in diversity as far as culture and ethnicity, in Guelph from any of the work or the time that you've been in beer in the area? You can be honest too. It's okay. No, it doesn't have to be perfect because we all have work to do. That's why we're all here.
Yeah.
Not really.
No.
Yeah. And
No.
I feel like, do you know what it is? Sometimes, and tell me if you think this is fair. Like when we're in Quebec, we always talked for a decade. We always talked about a lot of places in Quebec. You know, maybe a little resistant to something like Link Up because they don't see a problem because everybody in the town looks the same. Because outside of Montreal and Quebec City, for the most part, you know, maybe the Gatineau region, but most part, everybody is relatively monoculture, which is. Right. That happens in a lot of, you know, you go to Italy, it's all Italians, you know, you go to France, or French, you know, whatever. But I wonder if some of that is still, you know, here as the diaspora is moving out of the big city of Toronto, you know, over COVID, we saw a big influx, but previous to that, I imagine it would have been slow. And then now I feel like, you know, as Toronto is getting pretty livable with the prices, people are like, all right, and it doesn't matter where, you know, who they are, they're all going moving to different places and moving out. Exactly. So it could just be a matter of time as different people move from the cities and realize that, you know, we realize how dope it is in Hamilton. And I know there's a bunch of cities like Hamilton around this side, you know, west of Toronto, that I was gonna say just as good. It's probably not fair, but like have everything you need in one place. Like it's, I don't know, we love Hamilton. It's sick.
Yeah.
Everything is here is great, and I know that like Kitchener's dope and Guelph is dope, and all these different towns and London and so on and so forth. So I imagine maybe it's just a matter of time before people move to these areas. So it's interesting, the approach. Like, do you approach it on a regional thing and try and encourage people locally, or do you sort of try and stick to the cities? And I feel like there's definitely value in trying to put some effort into the small towns.
I have definitely seen more diversity in the city of Guelph over the past decade, which is great. I haven't seen that in actual craft beer as much. So I'm hoping that it's something that will, this is why we need to bring attention to it. Like we need to diversify and have many different voices and many different outlooks and opinions. And I'm really hoping like that this initiative will catch fire, and that's why I feel like we're really invested in doing anything we can to allow that to really spark a flame, and to just get this industry more diverse.
Yeah.
I don't know, like I can't speak to. I feel like I'm sort of, I am definitely in this bubble where I'm, I kind of have my insular little life. I don't know what breweries are like in Toronto right now. I don't know what it's like, what the scene is like in Toronto. I know a little more about Hamilton. I feel like Hamilton is definitely more diverse than Guelph is. I'm not sure about in the craft beer scene. But yeah, I feel like, since the pandemic and really not really being involved in a lot of events, I am the first to say I don't really have my finger on the pulse of like what diversity is like across Ontario in craft beer.
Yeah. I can definitely say there are places that, especially in Hamilton, Toronto too. So there's certain places that you go to, they do have a location privilege a little bit in that way too. But there is like an awareness or something that they do give off. One, if you have more diverse staff, which also can be a result of location privilege, but if you've just been kind of out there and speaking to a certain culture, you're more likely to attract a diverse staff. Then that staff tells their friends come in and they're drinking, and that helps to like spread it out, which is why we're super focused on the workforce aspect, because we felt like, okay, can we create this trickle down effect where there is, there's the side where people are trying to, get consumers and get them interested. But I'm like, if we infiltrate from the inside, maybe that will also help. Right? It's like we're trying to create opportunities and job opportunities, ownership opportunities for diverse individuals, but then also we want the industry to continue to thrive, and we know that there are untapped markets that the industry is probably not even 5% in on, especially in Canada. So that is one side of it. And I think when I think of like Bellwoods, you go on their patio, it's pretty diverse, feels pretty good when you're there. But if you're in Merritt here, Merritt feels great too, but they also have like the food aspect that also has this cultural flavor to it, because they have like the Black brewer, the Indian owner, all of these things that kind of work in that formula. And again, that also comes with diversifying the workforce. So I think as people move out and as we make people more aware of all the different types of jobs within breweries, so it's not just like, hey, you gotta be the white guy with the beard to work at a brewery. It's like, no, you can be in marketing, you can be in sales, you can be in accounting. There's all these different aspects. It's like that's kind of what needs to be pushed more and pushed across like job boards and reaching out in different areas to let that be known. So that way one Black individual who works at a brewery is like brings their mom or their cousin or their friend, and then it starts kind of going on from there. Really good friends of ours in LA, their big initiative before they launched, they're in the middle of opening their own brewery, but they were kind of in the same vein as us, but more focused on consumers. What they did was actually bring breweries into like predominantly Black spaces and like Black and brown spaces in order to like make them aware and be like, how much better does this taste than like what you've been drinking? And then they're like, oh. And then we did like, so when we went and like did like this brewery crawl with them, we just couldn't believe how many different people there were who you might have not generally seen.
Just to get the example of the spaces for people to think about that, like barbershops, shoe stores, like
Right.
the African American owners, so wherever African Americans typically would shop that they already feel comfortable in. Like, I'm gonna go to the barbershop anyway. I'm gonna go I can go there and hang out with my people and then drink this beer that someone who looks like me is saying this is great. I'm gonna probably listen to him, as opposed to somebody else trying to sell you something. I think that's the authenticity of all of that.
And it's local. People love local, so it's like you hit the local angle of it. Like us, we just try to buy everything local, basically. Like, we're just like, how do we find the farm? So like, we're not even going to the grocery store. Like, we're trying to like go all the way. So like, that's also like a bigger thing. So it's like not just the craft beer narrative, but it's like everything in your community narrative, and it's gonna have to be pushed more and more, and it's obviously a slow grind, but again, what you're doing, what we're doing, that's like the goal. I think it'll, in a decade, is the goal, is that just like you saw with Queen of Craft, it's like in a decade, hopefully we really see all the like fruit of the labor that we're putting in.
That's a good way to look at it.
It's a long game. Oh my gosh, it's a long game without question. Do
you feel that? Does it feel like a long decade for you? Does it feel like, oh man, like cause it must be, that's pretty incredible, to be honest, Karyn, that you've done that. You and Wilma as well, shout out to Wilma, have done that for such a long time and like seen the impact of it. I mean, that's pretty amazing, and that's one decade, like Tiff was saying. So like, imagine in another decade.
Definitely. I think it feels both like a real super long time, and it feels like it's been a blink of an eye at the same time. Which is, that funny thing about time is, if you actually take it apart and look at year by year, so much has happened over that time. But I can remember the very first event like it was, a couple weeks ago. And so, it's one of the only things that I've really in my career been truly devoted for this long. So it's almost been like bringing up a child, it's
cool.
Sort of, I liken it to, I've seen progression, I've seen growth, I've seen years that are great, I've seen years that, haven't been so great. I've been seeing volunteer staffs that have been like so incredibly into it. I've seen also the flip side of that. It's really been definitely a long game. And worth it. Obviously, every minute has been worth it. It's, but I think that, looking at it as you're going to be looking at that long game perspective, that long game, like, will soon just become part of what you're doing. And because you love it, it doesn't really feel like time, It's like something that you gravitate towards doing, that is becomes sort of part of you,
Yeah.
I like that. That's a good way to look at it, because I feel like with all of this work, and once people and I think really, like, if you look at like our favorite phrase right now is "in this economy," like you and I was talking off air as well. It's a crazy time in humanity coming off the last few years, and then we're feeling the repercussions of all of that, and so on, and then maybe there's people drinking less and so on and so forth. Like, how do we not save the industry a bit? Obviously, everything is just a dip, but like, it's been like this since the beginning of time. So how do we get as many people interested in beer, even if you want to look at it from a straight economics perspective? Like, how do you get more people interested in this to try and continue that wave going through these hard times and stuff? And I think that's it's such an interesting predicament and problem that everybody is dealing with, and the more people who can contribute to it, like, say, you guys were arguably the pioneers in Ontario of gender equality in breweries and really introducing women to craft beer in a way that made them feel safe and not what's the word? Not
it's like you're not placated, intimidated. It felt real. Like, it felt like, hey, there's this amazing thing. You should try and drink amazing things too. It's not just it's not just for
so
the
how
dudes.
Do you do that for everybody else? Like, as far as now, you're going to broaden it a little bit, maybe cultures who aren't exposed to it, or they go, this is, Jamaicans drink Heineken and Guinness or whatever. Like, how do you show Jamaicans, be like, yo, like, this shit's around, man. Like, there's fire.
Marketing,
I guess it is. But this is the problem that everybody has to kind of think about, because, we need to really diversify that as the industry as a whole. And, as you're in it, you've been working in it for a long time. We're like on the peripheral type of thing and trying to support it and try and do it. So there's like, I guess it's cool that, you know, we've got the breweries working on it and different people working to just expand that thing. And it just seems to be like, once again, that step by step, baby step approach to just get one person at a time interested in it and show people it is kind of fun. And there's some cool stuff involved, and why not drink something better? Same as like why we eat better food, like drink local and drink.
Once you drink great
quality.
beer, you're not going to go back. You're not going to go back.
No.
It's impossible.
No.
It's Folgers versus
like third wave,
versus
single
like a third
origin,
waves. Yeah, you know, it's
Kenya,
just not.
yeah.
You can't do it again. So it's just getting it in the hands in the first place.
It
that
is.
We're all
I
working
mean,
towards.
I also feel like, and I don't know if the two of you have noticed, excuse me, this as sort of a trend, but I do feel like beer in general is being consumed a lot less because we have all these like ready to drink beverages at the LCBO. We have, you know, low-cal stuff. And I feel like people are just way more conscious of like their carb intake right now.
Yes.
And I think that started, it's funny because I think through the pandemic, it was like everyone was going hard. Like we have never had a home delivery service like we did. Like it was like nonstop. We were just delivering all over Ontario, and it was very lucrative at the time. But then I think people then started to get sick of that lifestyle, and everyone got a Peloton and started working out all the time and kind of shifted. And I feel like almost from a consumption level, like a consumer consumption level, I feel like beer is not as popular as it was a few years ago or even before the pandemic. And so I think that, you know, innovation in craft beer is really important right now, as is staying true to like, you know, flagship brands, getting back to the roots of beer making, and doing like sort of the core stuff really well. I don't know. Have you noticed that there has been a change in the drinker and what the drinker consumes?
Well, I'm that person already. So yeah, I'm drinking less beer than I've drank in a decade without question. Coming out of the pandemic, not just love beer, you know, but yeah, it's high calorically. We want everyone to drink beer, but in moderation, and I've lowered that moderation a lot. This is just the only beer that I'd have tonight for sure. I definitely got into like the ready to drinks and all of that, so it's almost why it's extremely important, even just looking at it, because also we've all been drinking beer for so long, so then you're kind of like, all right, maybe I need to like lessen this out a little bit, which is why it's like you need new people in the funnel, really, right? And like 5% of the current demographic, like that's not enough, but if you have 5% of a much larger number, that's what you need, right? So that way you're always introducing new people. And that's why in the end it's probably going to be smart to do really what the big beer does, right? They're at college and university games. They sponsor all these things to get you in right from the beginning, and that's where they succeed. It's like we need to get people in from the beginning, and we need to get a diverse range of people in, as some people might age out, some people might decide to leave. There's so much that's going to change with the lifestyle, so that's why you need this continuous funnel. And I feel like it's been like almost the same people drinking beer and the same, like, I don't know, almost feels like it's like just all the same people for way too long, and that's like that's gonna be like a big problem economically speaking. So you need new people in. But yeah, I'm definitely guilty of it because I feel terrible, but I'm just like, the only thing is that I'm buying ready to drink from breweries, so actually I shouldn't feel so bad when you think about it. I just realized I'm drinking all my RTDs are from breweries.
Seltzers or whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, that's one thing about it.
And you know,
too.
I think that like a lot of breweries are doing them quite well, so it's interesting. It is really interesting because I don't know how brewers feel about that, because, you know, their first love is beer, right? Yeah. And
I'm sure they're frustrated.
I'm sure they're not thrilled about it.
They're placating to, like, you know, just the economic factor of like keeping themselves afloat, or whether, you know, they're super invested in their RTDs. I don't know.
But even the sparkling hot water, you do the sparkling hot waters, and I love those.
Oh, they're the best.
Like, those are amazing. So even that, I think, is just really cool. And it's like on my non-drinking days, I just open these like sometimes on like a Sunday afternoon and or breakfast. I'm like, yeah, I just want something different, and I feel like that's really smart too. So there's a lot of innovation on that side that's gonna need to happen as well.
That's a good point. We read this. We did a podcast earlier this year together, and we read these articles or watched these videos for like MSNBC or whatever. And basically, they were saying the craft breweries need to become beverage businesses in order to survive, maybe through this little lull. And I imagine kind of what you were saying. Like some brewers are just like, man, I didn't get into this to make seltzers and shit. Like it's not what I'm
It's
here
fair.
for or whatever.
Yeah.
And I completely understand. It's just more like, how much do you want to survive? And there's definitely been a return to flagship. I feel like we talked about this on our other pod, but that flagship February, which was something that I thought it was you guys, but I think you told me it wasn't. But that was
we did. Yeah, we did. That was
involved-
someone in the area who created flagship February, and I mean
Jumped
that's
on
good
that,
for a
right?
brewery like us that
Oh,
has
it's
all
amazing.
flagships.
But I feel like,
and,
yeah, you guys have a phenomenal lineup of flagships, and I think we did a bunch of them during that pod intentionally. And I've found that there's a lot of people, and a lot of my friends, I just noticed them. They're just like, I'm over the one-offs. Just give me wherever they're located, whether here on Quebec or in the States or Australia or whatever. They're just like, just give me the beer that I can rely on.
Oh yeah.
And that I know is a reasonably priced, and it's going to be quality every time. And I think people aren't as willing to roll the dice on the fun one-offs as much. Maybe some breweries have that as a part of their thing, and then it works for them. But I think that for every brewery, it just doesn't always work. So I think flagships are becoming much more important than they have been, because it was never cool to have like the same beer all the time. It was always like, what's new, what's different. But like, I think now people, in a time where there's an economic downturn, they just like want consistency. Same as your food, same as like anything. Don't you just want to get what you pay for?
You always go back to the basics and
You go back to basics.
In these
So
times,
flagships, I think, are more
And
important.
also, like Tiffany said, like if you're starting to diversify what you drink, in the fact that you're drinking some RTDs, some seltzers, some beers, like you're gonna want to pick something that you know is tried and true when you're choosing your beer now.
Yes, absolutely.
100%. Yeah.
It's an interesting time, and it's like, as far as the time I imagine that the three of us have been involved in beer is somewhat unprecedented. I haven't seen a downturn since I've been around in this world. Have you seen anything? This your first?
Like as far as economically, or
Well, I guess economically, but then sort of maybe directly, like in beer. I feel like it's almost like beer's just been on this slow incline the whole time, and then everything is going down at once. So it's not like it's beer's.
No, it's like everyone was in a
something
bull
wrong.
market. That's also why there are so many new breweries. So it's like where Wellington's been around forever. It's like technically, I don't know what the number is, but
In Ontario, it's
obviously
like
the majority
450
of
or
breweries
something.
all happened very recently.
Yeah.
And it's like there was a bull market. That's the same for everything. There was a ton of startups. It's just all of these businesses blew up because money was there and available, and now it's like kind of teetering out. And then there's this health conscious movement. So unfortunately, it's like the product that's not always considered the healthiest, even though people still go and eat like unhealthy things all the time.
oh yeah,
But for some reason, they're choosing like, oh, I'll drink less beer. That'll make it
I feel
only
like
the
you'd be
difference.
better
There's
off
more
having a
things.
beer
There's
than
more
the-
things that you need to add into that equation. But
Some
Yeah,
McDonald's.
yeah, I think I don't remember a time really where it felt kind of like this precarious, say, but that is like the whole. But Craig saw someone at the grocery store that recognized the podcast, and he was like, I can't remember what beer, but he's like, oh, not in this economy, I can't buy that beer or something.
I was
like
talking
that.
about like Belgian stuff or whatever.
Yeah,
Right.
And I was like, oh, you could probably get like Dre Fontana from the LCB. It's like, oh, the interest rates just went up. My mortgage went from like 1.8 to
and that's
6.
a
And I'm
fair,
like,
that's a real thing.
dude, that's a fair point.
It is.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like,
And
forgot
that's
about
why
that.
these
Yeah, that's a real
well-priced flagships, it does make sense. And to be honest, they're usually just like really great, well-made beers because they've been dialed in for so long. And then you're like, good.
And you
It's
can get it
like
at a
wine
reasonable
drinkers.
price.
Like I drink the same wine from the same people all the time. It never ends. I'm like,
Yeah.
great, new vintage. That's the only thing that generally changes, and I'm just going all the way through. So it's actually probably a good thing in the end. I'll buy cases of wine. You just need more people buying cases, buying things that they feel good about and
bulk,
can
yeah.
rely on. Yeah.
Right. And if you're going to buy in quantities like that, something that can age too, right?
Yes, exactly.
That's a good point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is a really good point. Unfortunately, those milkshakes don't hold up as well.
Yeah.
I don't know who's drinking milkshakes anymore.
I was like, are people still doing
that
that?
was a
Or sorry, was
2017
that
reference.
No, that was. Oh yeah,
No, that
yeah.
was good. No,
Okay,
that's
but you know what
funny.
I mean.
I appreciate
yeah.
it.
Oh, it's the sour. What's the
the
one that you're
haze.
obsessed with? Not that sour. The other. There's some beer that you were obsessed with recently. See, I drink pilsners and I keep it pretty
Oh,
chill.
yeah.
I get obsessed with a beer? Sour?
Yeah, there was some version of the sour that's hazy and a lot that you love.
I can't remember. But I'm here for it. Oh, the smoothie sours.
Smoothie sour, sorry. Yeah, smoothie
nice,
sours.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you know what I mean? And I tried and I'm like, oh my goodness.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm
Yeah,
just like,
they're
Those like, yeah, they're not going to last too long.
So
either.
that's what I'm saying. Those don't last too long either.
Right,
So
yeah.
Everything seems to be niching down even more, though. It's an interesting time, and I feel like everyone's trying to navigate that whilst introducing new people to the industry and keeping afloat. It's going to be, it's a strange time to be involved in beer, but I feel like
but with people like you doing exciting things like this, it also adds some hope to the industry. You know what I mean?
hopefully,
Yeah, that's the goal.
Hopefully that's how people feel.
Yeah.
I mean, like, but it's not just. I mean, we're doing Link Up, and it's dope, and there's so many people doing really cool things that are like
Definitely.
doing the same thing what you guys are doing.
Whether that's like education side, if that's
Yeah.
the sales side, it's just like I love
Just
what you
exposing new
all are
people.
doing. I love the breweries that are really intentional about creating these programs that are dedicated to like bettering the community, like focusing on the community, so like bettering it, supporting, bringing new people in. I think that's just like that's like one of the holistic business models that like every brewery really should be adopting. It's why corporations have full CSR departments, like it's just because you're not massive doesn't mean you can't like make any changes. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's like it's definitely baby steps. I think we have a long way to go for sure if we want to get to a place where we're really and truly, walking the walk and talking the talk.
Yeah.
And like everyone's got great ideas, right? But unless you're actually, you can put pen to paper, but if you're actually making those ideas come to fruition, that's where the actual work is. It's bridging that gap. And I feel like with some initiatives, we've done a very good job at that. And there are others that we're still working, we're still really pushing for those kinds of things to happen.
Yeah.
Which is, it's important. I mean, everything's going to need work and tweaking as well. None of this is an exact science. Everyone's trying to figure it out on the fly. No one knows what the hell's going on. We're all just trying to do it, and we're all just going to be gentle to ourselves. And obviously we all want this to move faster than it is, but it's just community work is this. I can only imagine people who are involved in like social work or any of the real community stuff.
All their lives,
it's just
Definitely.
there's nothing fast about anything and real changes. To bring this on home, Karyn, do you have any like if a brewery was listening to this and listen, this is a fun conversation. Obviously, this is longer than I told you because I kind of figured that talking to you was going to be a good one.
I know I can go on. Yeah.
We could be here for 3 hours again.
Yeah, bring it home. Bring it home.
So if a brewery was listening to this and they wanted to get involved in some sort of thing to try and, some sort of initiatives to, to do all the things we're talking about here, to expose their products and to expose beer in general to different communities, is there any sort of advice that you would give to somebody who was like I was saying earlier, like, maybe some people just feel a little stuck and they just like maybe into inaction because they don't know what to do. Like being somebody who has had action for a decade plus in this realm, is there any suggestions that you would have for anybody?
I definitely think that, and this is, feedback that I've had from some coworkers who, you get so much different feedback from everybody, but I've gotten feedback just even for ourselves, like throwing money at something is just not enough, like pitching a donation, having a charitable beer where the donation goes here, goes there, whatever, how is that performative? Like, I guess assessing like whether you are backing up that donation with opening up your tap room to community events that are for diverse populations, that are supporting the charities that you're trying to support through financial donations. It's just like it's more of like just building the community. I think is so important in giving a backbone to all of the charitable donation stuff that you're going to do. And so I think that anything that you can do to like actually create community at your brewery and make your brewery just a safe, inclusive space that people actually feel comfortable, feel confident walking into your doors. I think those things, like you got to start from the ground up, and you have to start with actual people, you know, with actual relationships, with connections. Then, you know, if you got the financial means to do the donations and to do all the other stuff, but it's got to start at a really, it's got to start at a place that has some heart, you know?
Yeah.
I love that. That's great advice. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And with that, Karyn, that was a great way to bring that home. Thank you so much. This has been
So great.
really...
I could talk to you guys all night.
This is a
Honestly.
really great conversation. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, it's really nice to meet you, Tiffany.
Yeah, it's really nice to finally meet you as well.
gonna-
Are we doing a photo?
I'm going to do the thumbnail,
Okay.
Karyn, like last time. Do you want to... I know you don't have the can to hold up there, but you could just smile. And that's... there we go. Perfect.
Awesome.
Stick around and we'll finish up off air as usual. But Karyn, thank you again for your time. This was a really fun
My
convo.
pleasure.
Where can everybody find Wellington Brewery online? And in
Well,
real
the
life?
Link Up beer particularly is you can buy it online at the Wellington Brewery, our Shopify store.
Perfect.
Or you can stop into the brewery and say hi to our amazing, incredible staff that are working there. They'll tell you all about it as well.
That is amazing. And it's at Wellington Brewery on Instagram. Is it wellingtonbrewery.ca.com?
wellingtonbrewery.ca.
There we go. Go grab it. They deliver anywhere in Ontario. It's exceptional. Karyn, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, guys. Go grab this beer. It's still around as of now.
Fantastic.
It's so good. Like
So
I'm
good.
I'm wrapped. I'm done
Yeah.
with this one. I
Well,
knew I'd...
if you guys ever need anything, just let me know, and I will bring it up to Hamilton because my two kids are now at McMaster in Hamilton, so I'm trying to come up.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm
See
trying
them
to
as
come up
much.
as often as I can because I miss them so much. So
Oh, I can
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm
if
there a
you...
lot.
I am
Yeah.
in shock that you have kids in university, but that's okay. We'll just move on from that.
I know, right?
I was like,
you don't look at her
scientifically
face
doesn't
and she
make sense
doesn't-
to me, but
Yeah.
sure. Okay, but that's very, very cool to know.
this is filtered. I think I'm filtering this.
What we're going to do, in the link in the description, is going to be Karyn's skincare regimen. She's going to break it down exactly.
It's beer. It's just
yeah, right. I just go in.
It's just the grains, two row, crushed. Karyn, thank you so much again. This is fantastic,
My
guys.
pleasure.
Thank you so much for watching and listening. If you enjoyed the episode, smash the thumbs up, hit subscribe below, hit that notification bell,
Ding.
so you know when the new drops. Follow us everywhere at BAOS Podcast and, of course, at Link Up Beer, linkupbeer.org. You can jump on there and apply if you are a BIPOC and you would like to get involved in Link Up in any way. Shoot us a note. And, of course, we have the Niagara College, the scholarship. Applications are open until October 9th. Now we are recording this in mid-September. This will come out very shortly after. So this time. So if you're looking to apply to the brewery, what's it called? You know what? You always remember the cool name of the program. Do you remember the name of the
Are you talking about
the Niagara College
the
Scholarship?
brewing operations program?
There you go.
Yeah.
You can go on there. You can learn to be a brewer. We're going to support you the whole way through. So apply for that if that is what you're looking
Yes,
to do.
not only brewery, but also mentorship as well.
Exactly. It's money. Guys, thank you again, Karyn. We'll see everybody in the next one. Cheers.
Bye.